Well, the balloons have dropped, and the sound of the day was unity after an assassin attempted to kill President Donald J. Trump. He has now accepted the nomination of his Republican Party for the third time. But the caveat here is he still doesn't know who he might be running against on the Democratic side. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Warren Kinsella and Brian Lilley. I want to talk, of course, about the chaos going on in the DNC, Brian and Warren. But first, Brian, I wanted to start with where we were just last Saturday afternoon. An attempted assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. Born out of that, probably one of the most iconic photos that we will ever see in our lifetime, with President Trump raising his fist and saying, "Fight," with the American flag, and all of that. Ear bleeding, obviously wounded. But moving forward to the RNC this week, picks his VP nominee, J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, unified Republican Party, long acceptance speech. Your takeaway from where the Republicans stand right now, then we're going to move on to where the Democrats are.
So Republicans came out unified. It was, not just me saying this. I wasn't at the convention, but those who were, even those who were opponents of Trump, said this was a well-run, highly successful convention. Now, I've been to American political conventions before. It has the feeling of religious fervor for both sides. That's the whole thing. It's like being at an Amway convention. You're being whipped up to go out into the world and spread the good news. I would say the last night was something that I never would have expected. Apparently, Grover Norquist wasn't available for a long speech about the tax code. So they brought in Hulk Hogan, Kid Rock, Dana White from UFC to introduce Trump, who then went on for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that was the best thing for Trump. You and I were joking earlier in the day, Adrienne, is he going to go 18 minutes or 90 minutes? He went 90 and he went off script. And there was one point his handlers had been telling everyone, he's not going to mention President Biden's name. He's not going to, and all throughout his speech, he just kept saying, the administration. And then at one point he says, Biden. I'm only going to mention his name once. Biden. So that was twice, and then he went on. But it was an hour and a half. It was remarkable. But look, all those, there's going to be a lot of people laughing at Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock and Dana White. Dana White more than the others. That's going to pull in an element of people who, young to middle-aged men especially, who are into UFC, who aren't normally politically engaged. Then go, yeah, Dana White's with him. That's my guy. There's going to be a bunch of UFC fights in Vegas before the election. Guess what? There will be a Trump at every one of them. That's what he's doing. Much like Obama used pop culture all through the 2012 campaign. And there were people saying, why is he doing this? Why is he talking to DJ Pimp with a limp? Why? Because he was reaching out to people who normally didn't vote. Smart politics, even if people inside the political game will laugh and mock at Trump the way they laughed and mocked at Obama.
Warren, aside from the politics of it, the usual sense is Republicans are fractured. There's varying wings of the party. They can't get along. You didn't see any of that this week. And Democrats are watching this. And as they go through their own internal struggles, and I'm being charitable when I say that, which I want to get to, but just from the stagecraft of the RNC, you heard commentators on many networks who are dyed-in-the-wool Democrats saying, this is incredible. We've never seen anything like this. This is a unified party. They had a message throughout the course of the week as, the forgotten men and women of the United States. And they had speakers on there. Sure, they had their celebrities, but they had the average American coming up there telling their story. A mom who lost her son from fentanyl, a brother who lost his sister from a murder allegedly by an illegal migrant. I mean, these were the stories that were being told, all under this unbelievable event that unfolded in an afternoon at a rally from President Trump's attempted assassination. Your take?
Well, First things first, full disclosure, I volunteered for Joe Biden last
Really?
time, so
Never
keep
heard
that in
that.
mind. Keep that in mind. The Republicans have had a pretty good string of weeks. Their candidate survived an assassination attempt. Their party is united, as you say. Trump is defeated, another legal challenge that he was
Mhm.
facing. But sorry to be the skunk at the party. That 92-minute speech that Donald Trump gave was crazier than a you know what rat. Like you watch that, it was the best thing that has happened to the Democratic Party in weeks. It was so nutty. It was nuttier than squirrel poop. That's how bad it was. He was okay at the start, and you could see his staff had said, please just be calm, maintain a pulse. Don't go crazy. Don't go off the rails. You've got this thing in the bag. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to go off the rails. Like, guys, he quoted Hannibal Lecter as an aspirational figure in politics. And he actually said Hannibal Lecter was the late, great Hannibal Lecter. As far as I can recall from the movies, Hannibal Lecter actually survives. But he talks about rounding up millions of people. He said that 110% or 107% of crimes in the United States are committed by illegal aliens. Well, Donald, there's not 107%. There's either 100% or, less than 100%. But it was crazy. And like Democrats, sorry, that was the best thing that happened to them, because what people were expecting was a sober, sedate, reflective Donald Trump. And what they got was Hannibal Lecter.
Which is how it started. So there were almost, it was the tale of two speeches last night. You had the on prompter speech, which he stuck to, and he talked about the attempt on his life and said very clearly, this is the last time you're going to hear this from me, but I'm going to tell you what happened. And and then there was the obvious off prompter speech, Brian, that just delved into what he normally does at his rallies, which are like at the one where the attempted assassination happened, there were over 45,000 people there. So he's packing these fields, packing these rooms. But that all said, yeah, the speech, it went sideways again. That is the best way to put it. But stepping away from that, sure, the Democrats needed some jolt. It's been a bad string of weeks for them. And then unfortunately, President Joe Biden tests positive for COVID, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But this comes on the heels of what is perhaps the most disastrous debate performance any of us have ever seen. And now his own party, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, all the poobahs of the Democratic Party are saying to President Joe Biden, it's time for you to go.
Yeah.
So I started by saying, Brian, that Trump, their ticket is set up. They don't know who they might be running against on the Democratic side.
They don't, and that's why I'm just pulling up the poll from Associated Press in Newark at the University of Chicago. They don't know who's going to be running against Trump. That's, if they had a solid candidate, what Warren's saying would be true. They could jump on all these things and say, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. They don't know. And so we've got this poll that shows 57% of all Americans want Donald Trump to step aside. They don't want him in the race. 70% of all Americans want Joe Biden out of the race. And then you look at their respective parties, and Trump still carries the majority of Republicans, but 65% of Democrats want Biden gone. Biden is currently in his Liz Truss phase of his political career. Will he outlast the head of lettuce? And I'm not sure that he will. And then who do you put in? Well, it's been interesting to watch Van Jones on CNN for the past few nights make the case that you can't necessarily go to Kamala Harris. And I would have thought that he would have said, look, she's a woman of color. We've got to go to her. And he's making the mathematical case of why this may not be the best thing on national television and forecasting that he thinks they should go with somebody else. So who do you go with? Well, only 17% of American voters think Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, would make a good president. And you say, oh, so most think that he'd make a bad president. Well, more think he'd be bad than good, but most people don't know who he is, 51%. For Gretchen Whitmer, it's over 60% don't know who she is. the Democrats are in a really bad spot right now. And
Right.
if they'd listened to the Kinsella cast months and months ago, Warren, they would have heard me say replace them with somebody solid. And now they didn't. And they put in Gavin Newsom. He's just given the Republicans a stick to beat them with on this parental rights thing, which will not fly in middle America, won't fly with moderate Democrats.
No,
Um,
exactly.
so I don't know what the Democrats do.
Well,
My friend
I
who's
want to
tight
I want
with a bunch of Obama bundlers and Biden bundlers tells me that the donor class wants Harris with Mark Kelly, the former astronaut and naval fighter pilot, as the VP. That's what the donor class wants. We'll see
well,
what happens.
conveniently, Warren, we have you here. I mean, you know a thing or two about what happens when a party is having a civil war. It usually doesn't end very well for either side, and it can be very bruising, and it can be long to recover from that. What you see happening with Joe Biden, who the Democrat Party has been propping up for the last 4 years, he's our guy. Biden's mistake, well, there are many, but his mistake was he didn't stick to what he said over 4 years ago. I'm the transitory candidate. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to move aside. He has now
Yeah.
put the party in a position where they are just over 3 weeks away from their own nomination, their own convention in Chicago. The money is on hold. Big donors are freezing their donations. The Hollywood class, the donor class, the poobah class of the Democrats are all saying, Joe, step aside. But one thing Joe Biden has, Warren, 14 million Americans, 14 million Democrats voted for him in the primary. And we can quibble about they didn't really have a primary. It was kind of a sham. But all of this is happening under the guise that this is the party saying democracy, democracy, democracy. Many of these people want to disenfranchise those voters. So if that's what they are intended to do, how do they move forward with a solid ticket for November 5th?
How does a leader measure their popularity? How do you measure their power? And Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer and everybody else who's been through this knows there's three things. You look at donations, you look at the polls, and you look at the party, right? People, polls, party. And by those three measurements, Joe Biden, and we're talking about it, before he makes a decision, I do believe in the next few days he's going to make an announcement that he is going to not be the candidate next time. The bottom of the polls have fallen out. For the first few days, it wasn't that bad. And then yesterday, for example, on MSNBC, which is Biden Central, they announced that Black women, right? Joe Biden needs Black women. 31% of them have dropped off Biden as their choice. On the money department, and I don't care about George Clooney and nobody else should either, but the bottom has fallen out of the donors. Like they're holding back their money. They say, we're not going to give you money if Joe is at the top of the ticket because he's hurting us up and down the ticket. And then within the party, it's not just Nancy Pelosi. Like now you've got Obama missionaries going in there and saying, you can't win. Chuck Schumer. Like these are people who are stalwarts of the Democratic Party saying, look, we are not going to lose to Donald Trump. And you're not going to be the reason for it, Joe. We love you. You've had an amazing career, but your career is done. So I believe he will make the decision because the things he needs to prop up his presidency, which is the people and the money and the party, they're all gone. They're gone.
Okay, very quick from you first, Brian. Is Biden going to announce his retirement from politics by the end of the weekend? And then the second question is, does he endorse Kamala Harris?
Not sure he's going to endorse anyone. We're hearing various things of putting her in. We're hearing an open nomination, several weeks of debates, and then an open nomination at the convention. We'll see. If it's not by Sunday, it's got to be by early next week. It's got to happen, and it's really sad that this is going to be the end of his political career. Love him or hate him, he's had good days, he's had bad days, good years, bad years. 50 years in politics, and it comes down to this. It's a sad ending.
Okay, Warren, we already know that you believe that something is coming in terms of a retirement announcement within a few days. But will he then endorse? Because we know the money is the Biden-Harris ticket. All the money that's been raised so far will go to needs to go to Kamala Harris. Otherwise, they start from scratch, ostensibly. Some maneuvering around that. But does he then say, okay, Kamala is my choice?
Yeah, to answer your two questions, is it going to happen this weekend? No, he is still dealing with COVID and he's got respiratory issues. And this is one you've got to do on TV. It's an address to the nation. He cannot be going on TV all raspy and hoarse and all that. That's one of the reasons why he's been driven out. So I think it'll be during the week, like Brian says. Does he hand it over to her? She has been playing it expertly. She has been a loyalist to him over the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
She hasn't given any hint of her ambition, but she obviously is ambitious for that job. But I don't believe, if you look at all the off the record stuff that's coming out, Biden keeps asking the same question. Can she win against Trump? Can she win? And he clearly doubts that she's got the ability. So my hunch is they're going to have an open convention. So it's going to be like an old fashioned kind of convention those of us in the media love, right? And it is going to get more viewers than the moon landing. The Democrats have not had an open convention since 1968. Now that one ended badly for them, but
In Chicago.
Nixon won in Chicago. But yeah, no, it's going to be crazy. You're going to have the anti-Israel lunatics outside rioting, and inside you're going to have real political intrigue and drama. And I think it's going to just obliterate the RNC in terms of ratings. And we all know Trump, that's his focus, and I think it'll be the focus for Democrats too.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to the TorontoSun.com. You're going to find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.